Here's a MeteoMark weather update report. Let's take a look at some flooding going on here across the northeast, Roseland, New Jersey, from Lenny Mendola. Thank you for sending this in, Lenny. This really hits home a very important point for this time of year. This starts our video mini-series on flooding and its dangers, especially flash flooding from tropical moisture and tropical air masses. You can see his street here in Roseland, New Jersey began to fill up with water with rainfall rates of 1 to 2, possibly 3 inches per hour across much of the area. And as you can see, this kind of pictures and footage can really bring out a lot of emotions. I know some of you, especially me, when you see this type of stuff, you want to click pictures of it, take videos. You feel excited, but you also feel, you get that feeling of, alright, how fast is this water going to continue to rise? And am I in any danger? Is my property in any danger? And that's where things really start to go downhill after a couple hours. So really, in retrospect, flash flooding like this, given in large doses, is a very bad situation. But hopefully things are improving here in Roseland, New Jersey. A lot of these thunderstorms are those single-celled thunderstorms that pop up, drop a lot of rain, and then weaken, and then move on. Their outflow boundaries develop other single-celled thunderstorms miles away from the initial impact of the first thunderstorm. So taking a look at a 17-second video here that Lenny sent in here. This is when the water began to get a little too deep for the road and it began to flow off into his backyard. And this is where conditions go really downhill pretty quickly, and it starts to make you a bit nervous. But hopefully everything is okay there now, and I can imagine being that we get these rainfall rates like that here in the Northeast, tropical areas can handle it a lot better. However, the northeastern states are really not set up for that type of rainfall rates, and our ground and our soil is just not spongy enough to actually absorb that in such a quick period of time such as that. So thank you, Lenny. Hopefully everything's good where you're at now, but that's quite some excitement here in portions of New Jersey, and even up here in upstate New York there was a flash flood warning for eastern Broome and western Delaware County, where we did see a good deal of moisture move over the area with a thunderstorm that dropped 4 inches of rain, caused some flash flooding on area creeks. Why exactly is this happening? Well, we have that Bermuda high out here in the Atlantic. It's pumping moisture up the eastern portion of the United States, and you got the stationary front into southeast Canada. Well, there's no fronts to really move this moisture along, and essentially what you have going on here is a problem with thunderstorms that develop in a very moisture-laden tropical air mass. They can't really move anywhere simply because there is not a mechanism to move these thunderstorms along. Steering currents are very weak, and that is very indicative of a tropical-like pattern. Things kind of stagnate and slow down a bit. So moving on from some flash flooding to some very beautiful photos here in Linden, Texas from Lucas. Take a look at some of these photos from the lush foliage of Linden, Texas. Some of these leaves actually remind you of the tropics, and being that there's so much vegetation here. And as you can see, some of these photos you can't actually barely see the sky from the forest floor because the foliage is so dense. So thank you, Lucas, for sending those in, but he did save the best for last, and that is 2 very beautiful sunset photos. Take a look at these. You got the first one here, has a nice backdrop here, and with the cloud structures and the patterns, but the last one here really does it. You got in the background here, you got the nice colors, but in the foreground you got like a special nice effect here with the vegetation hanging down from on the top and the bottom of the photo, and in the middle the colors really bring it out nice. So very nice sunset, Lucas. You're right, that is your best sunset photo to date that you've sent in. So very nice. So we move from flash flooding and we end it with a beautiful sunset. Very nice. How about that? So we're going to move on to the forecast, 96-hour quantitative precipitation guidance suggesting, and this is my thoughts here on this, the worst of it will be across the southern Canadian border, southeast Canada, through the northern Great Lakes, and extending down towards portions of upstate New York, where we could see in portions of northern New England as well through the weekend, where we'll have bouts of showers and thunderstorms that move through and drop 2 to 3 inches of rain during that period. But don't forget there's that localized flash flooding threat that I'll show you. And pretty much across the Gulf Coast we get that tropical showers and thunderstorms between 2 and 6 p.m. Let's take a look at the forecast from now through, and I'll show you a scenario of what I think is going to happen next week. Before we do that, the tropics are looking very quiet. We don't really have too many areas of interest. The satellite picture suggesting there's some very big tropical waves ready to move off the African coast. And then here across the Gulf of Mexico, there was something across South Florida that was trying to spin up, but it doesn't look very favorable. So let's head right on into Thursday here, where the worst of the weather will be across the Twin Cities of Minnesota here, extending just north of Chicago, where we'll get severe weather, flash flooding, basically everything imaginable. But the good news is you're going to have a silver lining in this, meaning those hot triple-digit heat temperatures across the Twin Cities will finally give way to cooler temperatures. Here in the Northeast, we're looking at the frontal boundary pushing southward towards the southern mid-Atlantic and towards the Carolinas. And we're going to continue to watch for that, because that sets us up for another stationary front, which will ride north as a warm front, as I'll show you through the weekend. So heading on into your TGIF, you can see things really start to ramp up here across the Great Lakes. We get that overrunning from the warm front here, severe weather continuing just north of Chicago through Detroit, London, Ontario, extending towards just western New York, western Pennsylvania. We could get on the act of some severe weather and flash flooding in these portions, and watch out for that flash flooding because it's quite dangerous. Heading on into the weekend, this is your weekend scenario. Watch for this next week, because I think this really cool pool of air behind this frontal boundary that will swing through the Great Lakes later on in the weekend and towards the early part of next week will push all the way through the East Coast and into the southeastern United States, and will blast these temperatures from the 50s and 60s all the way through the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. Let me show you those temperatures. Taking a look at Thursday, look at this. We continue to look for all of this hot, humid, hazy conditions, even some 100s well up into the Dakotas here, and extending on towards the Great Lakes and the Northeast. That's where we get into lower to middle 80s, very hot and tropical. But this will be short-lived. As we head on into Friday, conditions start to get a little bit cooler across the lakes with some more rain and overrunning precipitation. Still very humid though. This warm air tries to move east with not too much luck. Not lots of 90s and even some 100s out here in portions of the Plain States. And heading on into the weekend, I'm showing you this scenario now because look at what's behind this front. This is the scenario Saturday through Monday, and these temperatures are actually for later on in the weekend through the early part of next week. These are average highs for early part of next week that I'm looking at, forecast highs. And you can see some 60s and even some 50s bottled up here in southern and central Canada. So we're going to continue to watch as that frontal boundary moves towards the northeastern part of the United States. We could get into some very cool, crisp conditions, especially after Labor Day. That's going to do it for MeteoMark. Like me on Facebook at MeteoMark. Subscribe to me on YouTube at MeteoMark.com. Here's a 5-day forecast for the Susquehanna region of New York and the Susquehanna region of Pennsylvania from Scranton to Binghamton, Elmira. Heading on into the day, on Thursday, we're almost there to the weekend. We continue to watch for mostly sunny skies. We're going to see each day, especially Friday, we'll get a chance of an afternoon thunderstorm. Temperatures quite mild into the low 80s. we're going to start to move towards a cooler weather pattern. We head towards the weekend here. Saturday may be your best day this weekend because Sunday and Monday we start to look at showers and thunderstorms likely. So that's what we're going to be looking at, and it's going to get much cooler after Labor Day. So if you like summertime, enjoy those hot temperatures. That's going to do it for MeteoMark.